So we're going to start your site plan, bring your site or put your site plan into your project at this point. You can see up on the screen that I have a building kind of roughly laid in there. It's just a shell, it's just the outline of a building. It can be changed, modified a lot at some point. And I'm still on my main floor plan here, but you can see that the site property lines of the project are showing up there. And your template will probably allow this to happen. We don't want this on your floor plan sheet or your view. So when it does happen, right now I'm just going to hide it in the view. And I'll just hide that category because that's what we really want on our floor plan view. If I went to my, you'll notice that my building also sets true, it sets north, south, east, west. It's not necessarily in the shape of where our lot is going to be. And when we go to our site plan, you'll see that it's not sitting that way. Okay, so that's what we're going to want to do. In the handout that I just gave you, you can see that the lot is sitting kind of askew from north, south, east, west. It's not sitting true north. Okay, so we need to put this site in and then get our building orientated to the site. We want the building to sit right on the site, but we want it to be sitting in a perfect direction for our floor plan as well. So we need to have it setting in two different directions. Okay. I have my site on here, but I'm just going to get rid of it and reproduce it. So first off, what I'm going to do is put my building back to the way it was, what yours would show up. When you go to your site plan, does your building show up? Does it? Okay, but it's not sitting at this angle, right? If I zoom in on this little, you see this little icon in the middle here? If I zoom in on it, you'll notice that my angle to true north has been set to an odd, I'm going to put this back to 0. That's what yours is at. And now that's the way your building is shown, right? Okay, so I'm going to go click on this site, and I should be able to just delete it, I believe. Okay, so it's gone. Okay, so I need to start over. Okay, so I have my building in here. It's probably the way yours looks right now. And the first thing we're going to go is to massing and site. And we're going to go over to property lines and click on that. And we're going to create by entering distance and bearings. Okay, so we get this property lines dialog box comes up. And looking at the handout that I've given you, we're going to start on the property line that's at the corner of 3M Drive and Wheatland Road. Right down there, right? And what does it tell you there about that, the distance, and let's say the distance of that property line over the whole lot is what, 760.19 feet? Is that right? Everybody see that? And we're only going to take 200 of that feet for our property. And what is the direction of that? North 30 degrees, 27 minutes, 14 seconds west, right? Okay, so we're going to, on our first line up here, we're going to put in a distance of 200 feet. And it's going north. And it's going north 30 degrees, 27 minutes, 14 seconds west, right? So we can click on the E and change it to a W. Okay, so that's our first line of our property. Then we're going to go and insert our next line of our property, and that's going to be another 200 feet. And what is the direction of that? Okay, so right now I want to go parallel to the lines that is between lot 30 and 31 below. So you see 30 and 31, and what is the direction there? North 59 degrees, 32 minutes, 46 seconds east. That's the angle that we're going to put in for this property line. Okay, so we're going to be parallel to that one. That happens to be perpendicular to the property line of 3M Drive. That's why I'm using it. Okay, so we're going to go north 59 degrees. Minutes, 46 seconds east. Okay, so we've got that one in. Then we're going to insert another one, and this one is going to be 210 feet, 0.52 inches, huh? Or 0.52 feet, okay? So we should be able to go 210.52 feet, and it'll automatically convert it to inches and so for us. And in this case, are we going north or are we going south from this point? We're going south from this point, even though the angle that we're given down there says north. Actually, this line is parallel to our front line, the first one we put in. So it's parallel to this 30 degrees, 2714. So we can put in south, and then 30 degrees, 27 minutes, 14 seconds. And are we going south and east or south and west? South and east, right. Okay, so that is the only difference between this one and the first one we put in was that the first one was north and west, this one is south and east, but they're parallel. Okay. Now the only one we have left is the bottom line. And the bottom line is the one that's a curve, right? So at this point, we have a little command down here that says add line to close. We're going to click that, but that's a straight line, right? Okay, so let's just close that and say OK. And there's our property. It's locked onto our cursor, and we can set it in relationship to our building, something like that. Okay, now I want to modify it so that I can get a curve on this bottom line. So I'm going to click on the property, and I'm going to go to edit the table. Okay, so now on the edit the table, this bottom line is actually a radius, right? So I can go over here where it says type, and it's not a line, it's an arc. As soon as I change it to an arc, I can put in a radius. What is the radius of that line? What did you say? 1906. Okay. If you look on that curve, on that long curve there, there's some information about that curve, and it says the R is 1,906.47 feet. Okay, that's on the handout that I gave. Everybody find that? Okay, so we're going to type in 1906.47 feet. And this L and R over here means is that arc going left or right? And we're going to leave it at right, and we're going to say OK. And you'll notice that now that bottom line is a curve. Everybody see that? Okay, and it connected at all the points. Now you can probably say, well, how did that work out exactly perfectly? Well, when I gave you that dimension of 210.52 feet on the east side, I had already figured out what that length should be because I'd done this one before. If you hadn't done this before, you would have had to do several more steps to get that exactly perfect to figure out what that 210.52 feet is. And I'll explain that just briefly. It's not that critical for what you're doing right now, but if in order to solve that problem, that radius point would be 1,906.47 feet straight in line with the front property line, straight down. You could have drawn a line down and found that exact point. You could have, from that, drawn a circle with that radius, and then you'd have found out where those two lines intersected, and you could have put a dimension on there and found out exactly what that line should be, and then you'd have, so it's several more steps to find out exactly that 210.52 feet. I just kind of abbreviated that for now. Okay, so now we have our property, and now we need to get that building rotated to the right direction, right? Well, over in your browser, there's an orientation, and it probably defaulted to Project North. Is that right? Okay, so we want our orientation to be true north. That's going to put our building in relationship to true north. Okay, so I want the front of my building to face onto 3M Drive. So I want this front line of my building to be parallel with the 3M Drive property line. So I'm going to have to put a arcing or a dimension on here using an angular dimension. So how far do I have to rotate that? Which one do I dimension here? I can dimension from this line to this line and find out what that is. I can dimension from find out what that is. Okay. So I threw a couple of dimensions on there just to find out how much do I have to rotate this. Okay, so if I want this to be basically 0, I'm going to have to change something on this little icon over here. So if I click on this little icon, and the angle to true north, I can click here, and I'm going to put in this exact degree into here and see how that works. So I'm going to type in 59.546 degrees and click enter. It says the angle, it's telling me that one of my dimensions isn't going to work. I'll just delete the dimension. Okay, so that appeared to work, and now the front of my building should be parallel with that property line, but my building is outside of my property. Not a problem. I'm just going to delete that dimension. Now, I'm not going to move my building because that would move it on my floor plan view. I'm going to move the property. So I'm going to move this down here. Okay. And to start with, at this point, I want my distance from my front of my building to my property line to be, I'm just going to randomly say 50 feet at this point. So I'm going to put a dimension on. From there to my property line, and it came out to 51, 10, and 1/16 inches. So if I click on my property line, I can change that to 50 feet. And now it's correct that way, right? And then let's say that over here, I want a dimension from this edge of the building to this property line. And let's say I also want that to be 50 feet as a starting point. So again, I click on my building, change that to 50 feet. Okay, so I've situated my building in relationship to the corner of the property. Now that doesn't mean that that's where my building will end up staying, because when we start to develop our parking lot and things like that, we may need to move it. But at least I know my building is parallel to the front, parallel to that north property line, and 50 feet off that corner. That's all I need to know for now. Now I can go back and start refining my building, and then later on in the semester you'll be developing your site plan, and then you might move the property line now in relationship to the building versus the building. Okay? All right, everybody get that taken care of?